Yes, please go through this handout while we begin the class. I gave you some questions to think, and you should be able to answer those questions by the end of the session. So let's see how we fare on that. So who are these people, Chenchus? Any idea? And why are we interested in them? Yes? Who are Chenchus? Tribal people. And why are we interested in them? Why are we? Yes? Okay, they're confined to Andhra. So, why are we interested in these people who live in forests? Because you are studying anthropology, isn't it? So, why are we interested in these people, Chenchu people? Yes? Yes. We are interested in them because we are studying anthropology. And one of the key focus of anthropology is tribal people, or we will call them simple societies. How do we call these people? We call them as simple societies. We are a complex society. They represent a simple society. Primitive is a very insulting term, isn't it? When you call somebody primitive, what do you naturally mean? What is the hidden meaning when you call somebody primitive? You are saying they are not civilized. So, simple society is a value neutral term. You are not trying to call them as inferior or anything. When you call somebody primitive, there is a inherent meaning that you are trying to imply they are inferior. So we call them simple societies. And one of the key focus, whenever we study anthropology, let's say we are trying to study marriage, we are trying to study family, kinship. I hope you are carrying the sheet I gave you yesterday. Yes. So if you look at our syllabus from 2.1 onwards, you will find various familiar words like culture, society, family, kinship, religion, etc. When we are trying to study all these concepts, we try to study them through the lives of a lot of primitive people. Sociology focuses on more complex societies. Anthropology's primary focus is on simple societies. I hope that point is clear. What is the primary focus of anthropology? Simple societies, not. We also study complex societies, but compared to complex societies, there is greater emphasis on simple societies. But what is the problem in studying simple societies? What is the problem in studying simple societies? Yes? No problem? But I am saying there is a problem. So you must.
Understanding of their languages based upon their tribals, their accent and language and they use.
Exactly. Or to put it more clearly, you come from a complex society and you want to study someone from a simple society. So compared to you going and studying, let's say you have to study the poverty in Patancheru. It's going to be easy, right? Versus you going to study poverty in Nallamala Hills among Chenchu people. Their language could be different. They wear different clothes. They look different. So, in simple societies, the problem is that you are studying people who are unlike you. So, when I keep telling about all these societies, it may feel that you don't understand them. So, what are we going to do throughout this week? We will watch videos on one society every day for the rest of the week, so that you get to see how these people look like. How do they look like? How do they behave? What are their villages looking like? What kind of food do they eat? So basically, I am trying to, the intention is to give you certain imagination of the people we are going to discuss for the next few months. So these are societies which you would not have seen, right? Has anybody seen Chenchu society here? You must have, on a pilgrimage to Sri Salem, you must have occasionally heard about some Chenchu people, but you would have hardly had a pit stop. Isn't that so? So the intention is to familiarize you with these people and their ways of life. To that extent, since I can't take all of you on a 1 week trip to all these forest areas, what are we trying to do? The other easier alternative, which is to go through some short 20-25 minute documentaries and then discuss it and try to read a little bit about them. So I'll give you one relevant article about each of these societies, and like this you will have some questions, very simple basic questions, so that at the end of the class you should be able to at least have some answer to these basic questions. That's the format. Is that clear? So today I picked Chenchu people because Chenchus are very familiar to us. They speak Telugu, they can understand Telugu, and they live very close by. They're in the, where are they? Nallamala forest. So if you drive like 3 hours from Hyderabad, you will see Chenchu habitations. Starting from Mehboob Nagar, Kurnool, parts of Guntur and Prakasham district, you will find Chenchu people in all these areas. So since they are familiar to us, they are close to us, we will first begin with them and we will take one tribe each over the next few sessions. Today we will begin with the closest society. Then we will look at one tribe from central India, from Jharkhand maybe, another tribe from Odisha, then a tribal group from northeast, because northeast is full of tribal people. Northeast, you have many tribal states like Nagaland, Mizoram, Meghalaya, and we will probably end with some tribal groups in Andaman, because Andaman is also rich with many tribal societies, and they are probably the oldest living people who represent the earliest version of mankind. So we will end with Andaman people. So we are trying to look at diverse set of groups. So we are going to do some kind of a bird's eye view of all these tribal groups across India. How many tribal groups do we have in India? How many under the label scheduled tribes? How many set of people do we have under scheduled tribe category? Any idea? Yes? 75. Okay, somebody is saying 75. Any estimate? Yes? No idea? What would your guess be? Haven't you ever given this thought? You constantly keep hearing SCs, STs. So haven't you never given a thought, okay, how many groups would be under this label called scheduled tribes? We have about 700 such groups. All over India, we have nearly 700 such groups who come under the broad category of scheduled tribes. Now we can't study all 700, right? Can we? Even a expert of anthropology will not know all 700. So what do? We break them down into regionally, we break them down based on their occupation, and we survey them while trying to remember some 10 to 15 major tribal groups. That's all. So today we will begin with Chenchu. So I want you to closely examine and watch the documentary, and you must be able to help me navigate the discussion for the next half an hour. For the first half an hour, we'll watch a video. The next half an hour, you must cooperate with by giving me insights about what you have understood here. Yes? So you must watch carefully because I'm going to push you into discussion whether you like it or not. So if you be prepared, you might as well be prepared to answer and participate.
కోయిలమ్మ పాట వినవే ఆ కోయిలమ్మ పాట వినవే పచ్చ పచ్చని చెట్టు పూలు నవ్వినట్టు చెట్టు తల్లి మనసు కనవే అది తేనె తిరిగినట్టు కలవే చెట్టు తల్లి మనసు కనవే అది తేనె తిరిగినట్టు కలవే కొండల కోనల్ల పూకు మనే కోయిలమ్మ పాట వినవే ఆ కోయిలమ్మ పాట వినవే పచ్చ పచ్చని చెట్టు పూలు నవ్వినట్టు చెట్టు తల్లి మనసు కనవే అది తేనె తిరిగినట్టు కలవే చెట్టు తల్లి మనసు కనవే అది తేనె తిరిగినట్టు కలవే.
The Chenchus are a Telugu-speaking, food-gathering tribe living in the Nallamalai forests of Andhra Pradesh in India, spread over the districts of Mahbubnagar, Kurnool, Prakasam and Guntur. They are a conservative tribal group and have not made many changes in their lifestyle or tried to adapt to modernity. They live in the enclosed space and geography, leading a life of unbroken continuity. The Nallamalai forests are deciduous and deep. They cover mountainside and are full of treacherous pathways and dangerous ridges. The Chenchus are undaunted by their natural surroundings and set out to gather food or hunt animals. The bow and arrow and a small knife is all the Chenchus possess to hunt and live. They hunt wild animals like boar and deer, but with the increasing interest in wildlife conservation, they are content to hunt small animals like lizards, rabbits and wild birds. Their meal is fairly simple and usually consists of gruel made from jowar or maize and boiled or cooked jungle tubers. They mix tamarind fruit with tamarind ash and eat. This is especially good for pregnant women. They normally eat before setting out to gather food in the morning and eat again when they return home in the evening. This speaks of the enormous stamina of the Chenchus, who trek on foot through jungle paths all day long. The slender build of their bodies is deceptive and express little of their strong and resilient nature. The Chenchus collect jungle products like roots, fruits, tubers, beedi leaf, mahua flower, honey, gum, tamarind, and green leaves. Their care for the future is marginal, as they are used to living on a day-to-day basis. As a result, they have not cultivated much interest in agriculture. Though at times they work as forest laborers, they mostly prefer to fall back on their native skills to hunt and gather food. But the inroads of modern development have found their ways to the Chenchu homeland. Today, the forest region no longer belongs to the Chenchus. It has been declared as a tiger reserve sanctuary. The government has been motivating the Chenchus to adapt to agriculture, but has failed. The Chenchus refuse to be displaced from the forest and continue to live in harmony with the tigers in the sanctuary. Centuries of life in the forest have deprived the Chenchus of an ability to adapt easily to external situations. Though some of their children are sent to government schools, there are very few instances of educated Chenchus finding their way into mainstream modern society. The Chenchus are struggling to adapt to new patterns of life as the forest resources dwindle with time.
అప్పటి కాలమే మంచుకునేది సార్, ఇప్పటి కాలం ఏం లేదు. అప్పటి కాలానికి ఇప్పటి కాలానికి చాలా తేడా ఉంది. అప్పుడు పచ్చకూర వండుకొని తిన్న బలం ఉన్నది. ఇప్పుడు తెల్లకి బువ్వ తిన్న కూడా సతవ లేకుండా మనిషికి ఒరుబు అని పేరే కానీ అదేమో బలం ఇస్తుందా మనకి? అప్పటి కాలం ఏముంది, మొసరు తిన్నా కూడా ఇంత పట్టించేది. మొసరు అని ఉంటుంది చూడు, చెట్టుకి నరుక్కొని తింటాం, దాని ఇంత పుప్పని తీసుకొని తింటే చెట్టుది అది రసం. దాని బలం ఇప్పుడు నీ ఒరుబు కూడా ఇస్తలేదు. పప్పుతో నూనెతో తిన్నా కూడా బలం లేదు. ఇప్పుడు ఆ వెనకట చింతపండు బూడిదలు మెద్దుకొని దాన్ని మంచిగా పిసుక్కొని తింటే దానితో ఒక 1 గంట దగ్గర ఉండేది మనుషులు. అంతవరకు మళ్ళీ ఏమన్నా మొసరు దొరికితే నరుక్కొని తింటే తెల్లారుల దగ్గర ఉంది. పిల్లలు కూడా అదే తెచ్చి పెట్టుకుంటే ఆ జోన్ మాట నడిచింది వెనకట జమానాలు. ఇప్పుడు లమ్ముడు కూడా అదే నరుకుతున్నాడు, తుర్కు కూడా అది నరక, నాది కూడా అదే నరక కనుక్కొని మంచిగా దూరాడు ఎక్కి అది కొద్దిగా మోసి దాన్ని ఎక్కి దూరం ఆడతారు చెంచుని కన్నా ఎక్కువ. మరి అట్టాడి ఇప్పుడు మేము పేరెంట్ తీయాలంటే ఒక సూడ కట్టుకొని ఎక్కుతాం, ఇవన్నీ తీసేస్తాం, ఇటునే ఎక్కుతాం. ఎక్కి మన తలకాయకు ఒకటి ఉంటుంది, చెవులు కరవకుండా అన్నీ వాళ్ళు చూస్తారు. చూసి వాళ్ళు మా తోడికి వాళ్ళు ఎక్కుతారు. ఏదైనా కనపడితే ఎక్కి వాళ్ళు తీసుకొచ్చుకొని మళ్ళీ మా తోడికి వాళ్ళు అమ్ముకుంటారు. మైనా కాడంగా తేన కాడంగా పిల్లలు తట్ట వాళ్ళు కూడా దిగుతారు. మేము పోయి దొరత ఎవరో తీసుకుపోయినారు రా సరే అని అంటే మరి తీసేది లంబరోడే మేతగూడు. మళ్ళీ మేము పోయి టోర్లకు పోయి చూస్తే వాళ్ళు అమ్ముతుండ్రు తేనె మైనమ్మ అత్త. ఏడ తెచ్చినారు తేనె అంటే ఆడ మస్తు కూడా చెట్టు కూడా తెచ్చినాం, నువ్వు తెచ్చుకో నేను వద్దన్నమా అని అడుగుతాను. మరి దాని ఇలా అసలు మేమేం చెప్పాలి వాళ్ళకి? మళ్ళీ నువ్వెందుకు తెచ్చినవరా అంటే నువ్వు పోయి తెచ్చుకో, నీకు ఆటం గిట్ట మేము ఉన్నామా అని అడుగుతాను. మామూలుగా నువ్వు తెచ్చుకో, ఇంకా వాడు మొత్తం వాడు తెచ్చుకున్నాక మేము పోయేం తెద్దు. నువ్వు పోయి సరే రాళ్ళు పీక్కొద్దు మా తటలు గడ్డలు వాడు తేనె మొత్తం తెచ్చి వాడు అమ్ముకుపోయినారు, సరే రాళ్ళు పీక్కొచ్చి మేము అమ్ముదామా?
The Chenchus have been their own masters for many generations and have not needed the services of any outsider. They are unmindful of an external society which is alien and unimportant to them. The life in the wild is one of hardship, but the Chenchus live on, cheerfully unmindful of their difficulties. The boundaries of their native perception are defined by the natural boundaries of their geography. The roots are strong, and the bonding to an age-old tradition is deep and abiding. The Chenchus continue to live contently in their ancestral homeland as true sons and daughters of the forest to celebrate the joys and gains of life. A Chenchu village is known as Penta. Each Penta consists of a few huts that are spaced apart and are grouped together based on kinship pattern. The close relatives live nearby and the distant ones further away. Their homes comprise of few belongings and are generally sparse and Spartan in appearance. Pedda Manishi, or the village elder, is generally the authority to maintain social harmony in a family or a village. Generally, his counsel and word are final in all matters of the village.
భూములు ఉండాలి, ఎద్దులు కావాలి, ఇంకా అవి అయితేనే బాగుపడాలి. ఇంకా దేనికైనా బాగుపడరు. ఇంకా చదువులు అంటే చదివిన వాళ్ళు ఉండరు, చదువుతున్నారు. కొంతమంది నౌకర్లు ఉన్నాయి, ఆ నౌకర్లు వాళ్ళు బాగానే బతుకుతున్నారు నౌకర్ల మీద. లోతక జనం అంతా మొత్తము ఈ భూములు చేయక, ఈ భూములు లేక, ఎద్దులు లేక, ఇప్పటి పిల్లలు కొంచెం తెలివికి వచ్చినారు. అప్పటి వల్ల మేము పెద్ద మబ్బు మీద విన్నాం. అప్పుడు ఇంకా ఇంత తెలివి లేదు. అప్పుడు ఆ తెలివి లేక ఏమంటాం గవర్నమెంట్ ఏం చేస్తుందో ఇవన్నీ ఇస్తుంది, ఎద్దులు ఇస్తుంది, ఈ బండ్లు ఇస్తుంది, ఏమన్నా నన్ను తీసుకుపోయి ఆ ఊళ్ళో దిగితే చచ్చిపోతామో ఏమో, సావదింటుందా ఏమి అన్నది దయ్యము పెద్ద గిన్నెది సారు. అట్లా విండి బాగుపడలేదు చెంచు జనము. ఇప్పుడు అంతా ఈ డిజల్ ఎదిగినారు. ఇప్పుడు డిజల్ తెలుగున పెట్టారు. ఇప్పుడు పట్టణాలు అవి అన్నీ తిరుగుతున్నారు. ఇప్పుడు అంతా తెలివి పెట్టారు. ఇప్పుడు కావాల్సింది భూమి, ఊళ్ళో ఇల్లు, ఈ రెండైతేనే వాళ్ళు ముందుకు రావాలి.
The Chenchus are a broad, exogamous group that is subdivided into various clans. They follow the ancient system in Hindu tradition of Gotras, which represent the lineage and descent of clan members. There are 26 Gotras found among the Chenchus, and the various clans are identified by their Gotra name. They never marry within the Gotra or clan, and intermarry other clan members. The wife bears the husband's Gotra after marriage. The marriage is known as Pelli and takes place through a negotiated arrangement involving elders or through the choice of the young couple concerned. The ceremony is performed with traditional rituals in front of the community and the village elders. The elders belonging to the Uttaluri clan must be present as a matter of traditional custom, as the priest or Kularaju officiates over the marriage rites. The maternal uncle of the bride gives the bride away, and there is a feast and celebration at the end of the ceremony. The newly married Chenchu couple set up their own house and are expected to live together ever after. Divorce is allowed among the Chenchus on the grounds of incompatibility. Widow remarriages are common among them.
అమ్మా కాలు పెట్టరా గుడి కాలు పెట్టు చిన్న సెక్కు చిన్న అమ్మా ఈ నుంచి తొక్కాలి చూడు బాగా ఈ నుంచి దెబ్బ తగులుతాడు చూసుకో నా బిడ్డ తొక్కంత కుదరలేదు ఈ నుంచి తొక్కాలి చూడు బాగా ఈ నుంచి దెబ్బ
Lord Mallikarjuna, an incarnation of Lord Shiva, fell in love with a young Chenchu maiden by name Chenchu Lakshmi and married her. The Chenchus believe that they are the descendants of this couple and have a special place and mention in the Puranas, temple records and chronicles. For ages, the Chenchus have been associated with the famous Sri Sailam temple in Andhra Pradesh, situated at the heart of Chenchu land. The Sri Sailam temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva and Devi Brahmaramba, is a sacred pilgrim center for Hindus of all sects. The Chenchus have a strong belief system. They worship their deities with great devotion. Lord Ishvara among them is known as Lingamaya and Shakti as Maisamma or Peddamma. The worship of both male and female deities is accompanied by puja during the month of Shravan, that is, from July to August. The ritual of Lord Lingamaya represents the ancient mode of worshipping Lord Shiva. The Chenchus love their gods dearly and pray to them in earnest and endearing terms. The devotion borders on frenzy and passion and is magical in effect on the surroundings. The celebrations can be austere, serene, and simple, and sometimes they can be wild, intoxicating, and mystical.
అన్నిటికంటే మేము ఆట పాట పాడుకోవాలనుకున్నాం. చెప్పండి చెప్పండి తల్లి చెప్పాలా 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 చెప్పాలి అది ఓం నమః శివాయ ఓం నమః శివాయ
The rich folklore of their forefathers inspires and guides them to maintain a solid tradition. The dance, the gaiety, and the lyricism of their life reflects the joy and innocence as they live a life of rich contentment, seeking and aspiring for very little.
So what do you have to say? Did you watch or did you have a brief nap? Yes. So what do you think of these people? How is their way of life? What do you have to say? They are economically, educationally backward. Okay. Yes. Hunting gatherer. Hunting gathering. What do you mean by hunting gathering?
Food gatherers. By hunting, they are getting food.
Okay. Good. Yes. What are they doing with honey? Yes. Yes. They are collecting honey from the forest. Yes. They are taking out the honey wax. Okay. Honeycomb, so big honeycombs, they are cutting it. Yes. Arrow? Arrow masters. Okay. They are worshipping stones. Don't we all worship stones? But their stones are less fashionable than our stones. Is that so? So their gods are slightly more cruder than our version of a complex and a very civilized god. Animal sacrifice. Very good. Okay.
Strong belief system.
Yes.
Strong belief system is there.
Strong belief system. Belief system about what? You mean religious belief system. Okay. Divorces? Why are you interested in divorce? No. What does it tell you? That's good. What does it tell you?
Once they get into the marriage, definitely they are attached to that person.
Okay.
They will believe strongly.
How the Chenchus believe strongly or do they not believe strongly?
Senses believe strongly, but we are also, but
Hmm.
we have chances to get divorce also.
Can divorce provisions in a society give us any insight into the status of women in that society? What do you think? We are not interested in divorce for sadistic pleasure, are we? We are trying to understand divorce because the divorce norms of a society can be an indicator of a society's the status of women in the society. Is that not so? So let me ask you a different question on that context. What do you think is the status of women in Chenchu society? Is it better than ours, same as ours, or is it lesser than ours? Better, lesser, same? Yes? Lesser. Why lesser? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody? Yes. Anybody else? Yes. Okay. So we can say it is better, high better status because women have easy divorce. Women have choice in marriage. Widow remarriage is allowed. When a society has strong patriarchy, what is patriarchy? Superior or power with men. Authority is with men. Pater is men. Mater is mother. Matriarchy. So our societies tend to be patriarchal, where men stand at a higher position or men have favorable norms than women. So because of that, in a patriarchal society, a man is allowed to have many affairs but does not cause any problem. But if a woman deviates, it causes a lot of problem. So in a patriarchal society, divorce is very hard for women. So women find it very difficult to get an exit from marriages that are not working for them. Whereas in societies where women have higher position, divorce norms are relatively simpler. Both the sexes can easily break a marriage that is not working. Because In our society where divorce is very hard, it is not like men don't go around cheating. They do, but that is not seen as a major problem. But when women deviate, it is seen as a serious issue. That is because men have set the norms and they have chosen norms which are more favorable to them, isn't it? So here we can say women's status is slightly better than our society. What else? Yes, so that is one. So you are giving me some observations. Based on those observations, what can we understand about society? Like our friend here told us about divorce. Based on that, what did we try to understand? Based on that, we try to understand women's status. Likewise, we have to take an observation and try to see what that observation means. What else did you notice in the video, in the documentary? Yes? Village head. Interesting. Yes. What is he called? Pedda Manishi. And what is the Pedda Manishi telling you? What is his... Yes? No, what is this Pedda Manishi telling you? What is his complaint or... Solves the problems, acts as a elderly person. What else? What is he talking about? Does he say something about the Chenchu people being scared of government? Yes? So when government came and they started to give them education, Chenchus thought these government people are there to kill the Chenchu people. Government is coming to kill them so that they can take away their lands. So there is a lot of distrust or even mistrust. There is a lot of mistrust with the government or any outsider because they fear that outsiders are there to just cheat them or get the better of them so that they can get access to Chenchu forest land. So they do not go to schools, they do not take government ration. But he says now they have developed, now they have gotten over the fear. Now they have gotten over the fear and now he thinks getting jobs, getting education and going and working in the towns is okay, is a better way of life. Those who remain here probably are falling behind. That's his chief complaint, right? What else? What else did you notice? There is no practice of agriculture. Yes, they are hunter-gatherers. They are not used to agriculture. What else? Do you think, is there anything we can learn from them? Yes? What do you think we can learn from them? Do you think? Yes, that's a very good point. So, okay. Anybody else? They're good at dancing. Yes, that is true. Yes? Okay, life, free life. Collective spirit. Yes? Unity among people. So what do you think that modern society can learn from this so-called simple people? Unity or maybe their love for life. Isn't that so? There is a lot of, they're celebrating life. They're not running after money, success, status. They are just trying to enjoy life. They are not also trying to work very hard. So that's a very different set of moral system, right? If you take rest at home, your parents will call you lazy. Chenchu people are very free. They do very little work and they are just trying to have a lot of leisure, enjoy life, enjoy friendships, relations, and they have, their life is full of music and dance. They celebrate life. So they're not worried about future. Our life is full of worry. From the moment you get into school, your worry starts. How will I perform in this exam? Next, out of school, how will I get, which college will I get into? Then which job will I get into? Then next, who do I marry? And then which school do I send my kid to? So the whole cycle starts. So we are under eternal fears and worries, but they are not so much worried, or they're not having fears. They are just taking life as it comes. And do you think there is something that we can learn from them with respect to sustainable living? What is their attitude to nature? What do you think is their attitude to nature or environment? They are living in a very eco-friendly style, isn't it? Is their life so much resource intensive as our lives are? Or are they living in harmony with their surroundings? They are living in relative harmony with their surroundings, isn't it? Do you see them trying to destroy forests? They may be hunting. So chenchus follow a lot of norms. For instance, when they do their honey collection, they have a period when the bees are going through mating. So in that period, they don't collect honey. If they are hunting, they hunt various animals. And if they happen to find a young animal, they let the animal go. If the animal has not reached a certain age, even if they catch the animal, they don't kill it. They let it go. So these people represent what we are trying to learn today in the context of climate change. That is sustainable development or sustainable living. So sustainable development is built into their culture. We are trying to define it, what it means. There are various global summits trying to understand what this concept means. But something like sustainable development is already present in their existing ways of life. Don't you think so? So what can modern society learn from them? Can we say we can learn all these three from them? But does this mean that there is nothing that they can learn from us? Is there anything they can learn from us? Or is it that we are very bad and they are only good? Yes? What do you mean by civilization? What can chenchus benefit by coming in contact with the complex world, the outside world?
Based upon the technology we use, so these are the civilization.
So what can we give to them? Yes? Exactly. We can give them technology. We can give them health. Will Chenchu people have antibiotics, vaccines, or diagnostic facilities? If any person falls sick, what will they do? They will offer a goat to the god, praying that this person should recover soon. But will Chenchu people examine the reason behind illness? Or will they have any antibiotics or antivirals? Or will they have modern medical advances like vaccines and diagnostic facilities? No, right? They will not have access to health. Maybe they can also get education. Yes. We can describe all that under technology. Modernity can give some of its technology. They can learn about technology from us. We can learn about all these from them. Isn't that so? What else? How is the video structured? How is the video structured? As in, how is the video? What did you see in the video broadly? You began with, first, what did you see? First, what did you begin with? Honey collection. Okay, how do we describe that? We first try to understand their economy. Isn't that so? And what does their economy involve? Honey collection. They were digging some ground to collect some roots. What else did you see? Some tamarinds. They are trying to hunt. And they look primitive, but are they without any skills, or do they have any skills? Is honey collection a very simple thing to do, or is it a complex? Isn't that so? Honey collection, is it very easy to do? It is complex, right? You must collect honey without getting stung by a bee. You saw them hanging from those very steep hill slopes. You must not break and kill yourself or enjoy yourself, and you must still collect honey. So you saw about their economy, and there was one man and he was complaining, he was giving some complaints. There was a man who was telling something about honey collection. Yes, what about Lambadas? Lambadas and Madigas. He's complaining something about Lambadas and Madigas. What is this man's complaint? Competition. So we hear also this all the time, right? Outsiders are coming and taking away our jobs. You see that in the USA, Donald Trump was leading the movement there. Here in Maharashtra, Shiv Sena is a party which used to talk about outsiders coming in, Biharis coming and taking the jobs in Mumbai. So Chenchus are also not free from those complaints. What are they saying? That the Lambadas and Madigas are also coming into forests, and they are giving these Chenchu people a competition in terms of collecting honey. And he says, are they any greater than Chenchus who have long history in collecting honey? So he is confident about his own people's abilities. So we saw their economic issues, and we also saw that they are also having some economic complaints. Isn't that so? They also have certain complaints. Next, what did we see? We saw their village, and we saw how is their village different from our villages. If you have been to any village here, how is that different from Chenchu habitation? How many houses are there in that village? 4 or 5, sometimes 10, 20. I'll show you, we'll close session. Before we close, I'll show you one of the pictures I collected from my own field trips. So every year, whenever I find time, I try to go on a field trip to some tribal group. So I have pictures from my recent tribal visit where I'll also show you how people live on hill tops. So how is their village? 4 or 5 houses. So 20, 30 people may form a village. What is the size of a typical village in our areas here near Hyderabad, Telangana and AP? Villages may have population of about 2,000, 3,000, some even 5,000. In the densely populated regions like the Godavari Delta, you may even have up to 5,000, but they are usually around 2,000 to 3,000. These are very small hamlets. So we saw their kinship. Next, what did we see? Their marriage. We saw how they go about marriage, isn't it? Do they have some rules for marriage? Or is marriage free choice, as our movies tell us? You can, yes? They follow some rules. They don't marry within the Gotra. And yes, so the wife goes to the husband's side. So they have some norms, right? That everybody must follow. And there are some elders who officiate the marriage. And they also have some ceremony, isn't it? There are some marriage norms. There is somebody who resembles a priest. He performs marriage in a particular way. What else? Last, what did you see in the end? In the end, we discussed something about their Religion. Do they also have religion? They do? Yes. Is it as elaborate as our religion? No. But they do have a religion, right? They have their own gods. They have their own ways of connecting with the God. How do you reach out to your God? You may go to a place of worship, a holy place like a temple, a masjid, or a church, or you may just pray at your home, or some of you who are more advanced may just meditate to reach to your God. So there are various ways in which you try to communicate with your holy world, right? The sacred world. So do they also have their own set of gods and their own belief systems? Yes? Yes. And is there any one particular goddess or god who they see as their ancestor? Yes? Lingaya and Chenchu Lakshmi. There is some goddess called Chenchu Lakshmi. And do they have any myths? We have myths, right? You have various myths in your, depending on the religion or the faith that you have. That there was Krishna, he lifted on a small finger, he lifted a huge Govardhan hill. If you are in Christianity, you have the miracles that Jesus Christ did. So in Islam, you have the various exploits of the Prophet. So in every religion, there is mythology. Our epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, are also part of myths. They are not history, isn't it? They didn't really happen, but we believe so. So we have our set of myths. The Chenchus also have their myths of how Lord Shiva apparently quoted their goddess Chenchu Lakshmi, and they see themselves as descendants of this marriage between the Lord Shiva, who resides in Srisailam, and Chenchu Lakshmi, who is their mother goddess. So they also have certain myths, do they? So the Chenchu people also have a very rich religious life. So this is how we study, and we also saw their political life, isn't it? You saw the institution of Peddamanishi. We discussed how this Peddamanishi, what he was telling about the past, and if two Chenchus have a problem, what do? Do they go file an FIR in the nearest police station and then wait for a hearing in the district court? Isn't it? Is it so? By the time they call 100, to call 100, they must probably trek 30 kilometers to get signal. So they can't reach out to police, they don't have courts, and they don't have jails where they can lodge the antisocial elements, where the criminals can be punished. Do they have these institutions? They don't have any of these. So instead, how do they resolve their disputes? If somebody does a mistake, if one man, instead of sleeping with his wife, has an affair with another man's wife, then how do they solve the problem? A Peddamanishi may come. If one man, instead of hunting in his allocated place, goes and hunts in another man's place, or he steals another man's hunting implements. They have their tools, right? So you lost your tool, your neighbor has a better tool, so in the night you go and steal it because you are jealous. Then somebody must intervene and settle the dispute, right? So how do they do that? They have an elder man. So an elder, instead of having a judge, here in our society, who decides what is right and what is wrong? There is a judge. He must read law for years, and then he must pass an exam to become a judge, and then he sits in a court wearing black robes, and there is a statue of the justice, the Lady of Justice, who is symbolizing that he will deliver justice, and in this setting you go and get your justice. Is that not so? And this whole mechanism is very expensive. You must pay lawyers' fees, and you must wait for a long time to settle your dispute. Is that not so? But Chenchus are not. They don't have the resources and time to do all this. So what do? They go to their Pedda Manishi, or we can, the general term is, he must have had lot of wisdom in life. And that, on that basis, you believe in his judgment. So, is this not how we can look at Chenchu's life? Can we analyze their life in the following steps? Yes? So, this is how we study any society, not just Chenchu's. This is how we analyze any society, not just Chenchu's. And that is why our syllabus is structured in the same lines. If you look at your syllabus, you will have these exact words as chapters. One chapter on marriage and family, another on religion, another on kinship, and so on. I didn't give you details, but as we begin our course, we will take each topic and examine it in more detail. That is the way in which we will study. And what is this whole discussion today? Can we give any name to the discussion we had today? You saw these people for half an hour and we are discussing their life for another half an hour. Can we give any name to this discussion? Yes, life story. Lives of tribals. Can there be any simpler word? So, in anthropology, we call this as ethnography. This is called as ethnography. This can be the first technical term that we are introducing. What we did for the last 1 hour can be called as ethnography. You can Google this term. What is ethnography? Just like, since we cannot go to Nallamala and study them directly, we watched a video and discussed. But somebody went there and shot the video for us, right? So, in real life, anthropologists take a society, they go there and they stay with them for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month, sometimes even a whole year, and study that society, and they record that society's, the people's way of life, they learn their language, how they live, how they marry, how their economy works, do they have money, do they not have money, what kind of religious beliefs do they have. All this is recorded, and this is called as ethnography. What does the word ethno mean? Ethno means culture. Ethno means culture. You say ethnic wear, you must be only familiar with ethnic wear. So ethno means culture. And what is culture? This whole thing is called as culture. So we studied the culture of Chenchu people in the last 1 hour. And we studied their culture, and their culture is studied through various ethnography. So ethnography is the record. It's a record of a people's life, a people's culture. So the record of people's culture is called as ethnography. So is that clear? We introduced 2 terms today, ethnography, and what is the second term? We said we will call these people as, so by the end of this session, you know 2 terms. What are the 2 terms? Ethnography, and what is a simple society. And you are now familiar with Chenchu's people, how they live. Are you not? Do you know how they live, how they dress? So I gave you some images here. Do you see? Just go to the last page. I gave you an article. Please go through the handout, read this article. It discusses the same things in more detail. Here, this first picture is not very clear. Next, you see a Chenchu hut. Yes? How a typical hut looks. How they hunt. And here, they apparently collect honey from the trees. Honey is sometimes within the tree. So they know, they have very elaborate knowledge of where honey is stored. One way is to see honeycombs. Sometimes honey is hidden within the tree bark. And how do they know? If they see, they can detect bees fecal matter. So if they see a lot of bee fecal matter in one part of the tree, that means that there is honey inside. Or if they see any bear marks, bear fingerprints, which means that a bear had tried to break open the tree but could not, which means that there must be some honey inside the tree. So they have these elaborate understanding or minute details of honey collection are familiar to them. So can we call these people as those who do not have any skills? They have their own skills. Your skills are in writing computer code. Their skills are in collecting honey. Isn't that not so? So yes. So we will discuss, before we close today, I wanted to show you some of these field trips. How do the field trips look like? So yes, let's see. So this is the place I visited, comes in the borders of AP and Odisha. This is near Sitampet area in Srikakulam district. It's called ITDA Sitampet. Yes? Palakonda. It's not near Palakonda, it is near Sitampet. Or on the other side you have Parlakimidi in Odisha. So the tribe that we are discussing will be called as Savara. The name of the tribal group is Savara. And you will find Savara people distributed along AP and Odisha. In the AP Odisha border regions, you will find them in a lot of numbers. So this is my local guide, and this is how the village looks. This is a village on the bottom of hills. This is a settlement on a hilltop. So we had to, this particular village does not have road. So you must walk or trek for 40 minutes to get to the top of the village. Now imagine if there's a pregnant woman who is expecting. Now, how does she reach the hospital? Or there is an old lady who has a heart attack in the middle of the night. Can they immediately call 108? Even to reach 108, they must trek down for 40 minutes through rocky terrain. So that is how these people live. So this is how the children and women, do they clearly look impoverished and poor? So this is again on a hilltop, and you can see their houses very crude and dilapidated. So this is the village, that's it. The village has 2 rows of houses on each side. About 8 or 9 houses on each side. 20 houses make the village. And about 200 people is the size of the village. And they have a school there. This is the school. This is a teacher. He is a 12th pass, and his house has become the school for the kids in the small village. So they have combined classes for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th classes. So each of them is in one of the classes with a class strength of 1 student each. So this is a typical school. This is the house of one of the teachers. Because they could not build school on a hilltop, the local instructor's house became school for the students. And after they finish up to primary 5th or 6th, then what do? Since the teacher cannot come every day up to the hill, they have a residential school 10 kilometers away. So for all the tribal people living in a zone, they have this ashram schools. If you go into Araku, Paderu, or Rampachodavaram, any of these Bhadrachalam, Putnur in Adilabad, any of these tribal areas, you will see a lot of government hostels and government school buildings. Because these tribals live on various hilltops, and it is not possible for one teacher to go for one student, right? So what is the alternative? Build residential schools where tribals within 10-20 kilometer radius can send their children and they all stay there. There is no need to go back. And more importantly, residential school works better because the children are at least assured of food. If the parents are not able to provide food because of poverty, in a government hostel, they are at least assured of food. If they learn anything, that is a bonus. But children at least do not starve. So that is why residential schools are popular in tribal areas. And these are the youth who got education, they passed 10th but don't know what to do next. So this is the local guide, and this is a local person in NGO who works in training this youth and in providing them various livelihood opportunities. So this is another example of how tribal societies work. So we are going to watch 2-3 more such societies in the next 2 days, and from beginning Monday we will have more detailed conceptual discussions that helps us understand the lives of people like this. And we will examine these people's lives through various theories and various concepts like marriage, family, kinship. So are you able to follow what we are going to study? The objective is to first tell you the people, show you the people that you are going to spend time studying. Otherwise, at the end of the course, you should not ask me, how do these tribal people look? You now have a sense, right? You now can imagine how these people live or what is their culture like. That helps us better understand and better connect with the discussion that we will have, which will be slightly more serious from Monday.